Well, it's always great to hear from the successor for Kwasi Kwarteng's constituency, Mr. Speaker. I'm very proud to represent our country on the world stage last week in COP, before that in NATO, and it's because of the reputation we've rebuilt over the last 15, 16 months that other countries now want to do trade deals with us and want to place their orders with us.
Mr. Speaker, this morning on the BBC, the Health Secretary said there is a toxic culture in Downing Street that needs to change. He's right, isn't he?
Mr. Speaker, my focus each and every day is on rebuilding and renewing our country. But let me be absolutely clear, any attack on any member of my cabinet is completely unacceptable.
Well, what do we have here? It appears the Labour Party might be quietly shopping around for a new leader whilst the current one is still warming the seat at number 10. Labour Together, the very think tank that orchestrated Keir Starmer's rise to power back in 2020, is now conducting a rather cheeky survey asking party members who they reckon could do a better job than him at winning the next election. Imagine hiring an estate agent to sell your house, only to discover they are simultaneously asking your neighbours if they fancy buying it and kicking you out. Awkward does not quite cover it, does it? Quick favour, if you are loving this, hit that subscribe button and smash that notification bell. Over 94% of viewers have not yet. It is free, takes a second, and means a world to us. Cheers if you did. Now back to the show. Right, let us dive into this absolute rollercoaster of political intrigue, shall we? The Times got their hands on a survey that Labour Together has been sending round to local Labour parties, and the questions being asked are nothing short of extraordinary. They are essentially polling activists on which politicians have the best chance of leading Labour to electoral victory at the next general election compared to Starmer. Not alongside him, not supporting him, compared to him. That is political speak for we might need a plan B, and we need to know what you lot think about it. The survey is not exactly subtle either. It lists 8 senior Labour politicians next to Starmer's name like some sort of political top trumps game. We have got 5 cabinet ministers in the mix, with Streeting, the health secretary who seems to be permanently one controversial statement away from a media firestorm, Shabana Mahmood, the home secretary, Bridget Phillipson, handling education, Ed Miliband, who has returned from a political wilderness to run energy, and Darren Jones, the chief secretary to the Prime Minister. Then we have got Angela Rayner, the former Deputy Prime Minister who has been conspicuously absent from Cabinet lately, Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester who has been eyeing return to Westminster like a hungry cat watching a bird feeder, and Lucy Powell, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. Now, to sweeten the deal and presumably ensure people actually bother filling out this political crystal ball exercise, participants are being entered into a £500 cash draw. Nothing says we value your opinion on the future of British democracy quite like the chance to win enough money for a decent holiday in Benidorm, does it? They are also being asked to place each politician on a left-right scale ranging from very left-wing to very right-wing, which should provide some absolutely fascinating insights into how the membership perceives their own leaders. Spoiler alert, everyone thinks they are more centrist than everyone else thinks they are. But here is where it gets properly interesting. The Times reported seeing various hypothetical leadership matchups on several digital devices. We are talking Phillipson versus Burnham, Phillipson versus Streeting, Burnham versus Starmer, Jones versus Starmer, Rayner versus Streeting, and Rayner versus Mahmood. It is like a political version of fantasy football, except instead of trying to predict who will score the most goals, you are predicting who is most likely to backstab whom in the pursuit of power. Much more entertaining, if you ask me. Now, you might be thinking, surely internal polling of members' views on senior Labour figures is perfectly normal? And you would be right. Political parties conduct this sort of research all the time. It is sensible to know what your membership thinks about your key players. But here's the rub, asking whether Starmer is more or less able to win a general election compared to others in the party whilst he is still the sitting Prime Minister. That is not standard practice. That is basically asking, fancy a change at the top, do we, whilst pretending you are just conducting routine market research. Labour Together is not exactly keeping this under wraps either, though they have not been shouting about it from the rooftops. They are planning to convey the survey results to the party leadership and conduct further polling and focus group research on members' views in the coming months. Translation: They are building a comprehensive dossier on who the membership would prefer as leader, complete with all the data any potential challenger would need to mount a credible campaign. How thoughtful of them. The irony here is absolutely delicious. Labour Together, under the stewardship of Starmer's current Chief of Staff Morgan McSweeney, spent significant funds on internal polling that helped Starmer win the 2020 leadership election to replace Jeremy Corbyn. They were instrumental in his rise. They are, in essence, the very people who put him where he is today. And now they are conducting surveys that could pave the way for someone else to take his place. It is like your parents spending years helping you build a successful career, only to start asking your siblings if they fancy having a go at your job instead. During Corbyn's leadership, McSweeney used Labour Together and its donations to fund research that he eventually weaponized to defeat the left in the 2020 leadership contest. The think tank has since focused on polling and policy that broadly supports the government's agenda. Until 2024, it was run by Josh Simons, who is now a Labour MP and Cabinet Office Minister. The close links between Labour Together and Downing Street have earned it the title of the only Starmerite think tank, which makes this survey all the more explosive. If the Starmerites are polling for alternatives to Starmer, what does that tell you about their confidence in his ability to win the next election? There is no indication that McSweeney or any of the potential candidates named were aware of the survey, which closes on December 15th. Labour Together has not publicly mentioned its existence, according to The Times. So either this is a rogue operation being conducted without the knowledge of the very people who could benefit, or there is some spectacularly good plausible deniability being maintained here. Either way, someone at Labour Together decided this research needed to happen, and they are presumably not doing it for a laugh. The desperation to get responses is palpable. In an email to party activists this weekend, a senior staff member at the think tank mentioned stellar pickup so far and offered £100 to any local party with more than 10 members responding, along with entry into a £1,000 prize draw. They are literally throwing money at people to find out who they would prefer as leader. Imagine being so keen to gauge whether your boss should be replaced that you start bribing people for their opinions. That is commitment to the cause right there. The survey itself is remarkably comprehensive. Respondents are being asked about their preferences for Labour politicians who have principles but are prepared to compromise versus those who stand by their principles no matter what. That is basically asking whether people prefer pragmatists or ideologues, which will provide crucial information about whether the membership wants someone who will stick to their guns regardless of electoral consequences or someone willing to bend with the political winds to win elections. They are also being asked about the government's performance on various policy areas, reasons for joining the Labour Party, past voting history, level of education, and postcode. This is not a quick temperature check. This is a full diagnostic scan of the Labour membership's political DNA. The comprehensive nature of this survey means Labour Together will have valuable insights into the views and composition of the membership, which is notoriously difficult to poll conventionally. This information would be absolutely invaluable to any politician planning to stand to replace Starmer, although there is no suggestion that Labour Together solicited the survey on behalf of any specific candidate. Of course there is not. That would be terribly improper. No. They are just conducting detailed research on who members prefer as leader, how they perceive different candidates' ideological positions, and who they would vote for in various hypothetical matchups. Purely academic interest. Obviously, none of the likely candidates named in the questionnaire have explicitly confirmed their leadership ambitions, though they are all discussed as contenders in Labour circles, which is politicians speak for everyone knows they want the job, but nobody is admitting it yet because Starmer is still technically in charge. Only Ed Miliband has ruled himself out, stating last month that his first stint as leader was a very successful inoculation against wanting to run again. Translation: he tried being leader once. It was absolutely miserable, and he has no desire whatsoever to repeat that particular nightmare. Fair enough, really. But the speculation has been heating up recently. Last month, Downing Street briefed multiple media outlets that Starmer would fight any challenge to his leadership. Now, when a prime minister feels a need to publicly declare they would fight to keep their job, that is usually a sign that people are wondering whether they are about to lose it. It is like announcing you are definitely not breaking up with your partner. Nobody believes you, and it just makes everyone more convinced something is wrong. That briefing led to days of hostility between Wes Streeting, who was accused of plotting a coup against the Prime Minister, and Number 10. Streeting, for his part, has been remarkably visible lately, making bold statements about NHS reform and positioning himself as someone willing to make tough decisions. Whether that is because he is genuinely passionate about health policy or because he is building his leadership credentials is a question best left with political analysts and conspiracy theorists. Though let us be honest, it is probably a bit of both. Discussion about the likely dividing lines in the next leadership contest has intensified in recent days. In an interview with The Observer, Starmer confirmed his desire to see Angela Rayner back in the cabinet. Remember Rayner? The former Deputy Prime Minister who has been conspicuously absent from the top table lately? She is considered the kingmaker for the succession, which means whoever wins her backing probably has the best shot at the crown. The Mail on Sunday reported that Starmer had offered Rayner the job of Education Secretary to dissuade her from challenging his leadership. Number 10 denied this claim, naturally, because admitting you are bribing potential rivals with cabinet positions to prevent them from mounting a challenge would be rather embarrassing. And if all that was not enough drama for one political party, Unite, the trade union, is considering calling an emergency conference to vote on whether it should remain affiliated with the Labour Party. If they sever ties, the union could no longer nominate a candidate in any leadership election, and its members would lose their right to vote alongside Labour members. This is particularly noteworthy given that Unite was the party's biggest donor in the third quarter of this year, despite its hostility towards Starmer. Imagine being so fed up with someone that you are willing to walk away from a relationship despite having just given them loads of money. That is next-level frustration. So what does all this mean for Keir Starmer? Well, it is not exactly resounding voter confidence, is it? The think tank that helped him become the leader is now polling members on who they would prefer instead.